And welcome to another episode. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Christy Cambell. I met her through a business coaching group and connected through that. And I think one of the biggest things that I connected through her is her own story. She was telling the story in front of everybody, which so much courage. I was bawling. I remember I went up to you and I was like, I felt that so much. And I was like crying in front of you, and I don't cry. We've connected multiple times through other means, which we can totally talk about today. I'm pretty, like you guys listening, if you know me, I'm pretty authentic. I'm pretty open about things. I know Chrissy is the same way as well. So we'll probably get into some deep shit today. But Chrissy, can you, for those who have never heard about you, don't even know who you are, can you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So first off, I loved when we met too, because it took me 10 seconds to look at your background, through your Instagram and be like, oh, this girl knows what's up, didn't necessarily come out of the box the way people perceive you now. Right.
Mm-hmm.
There's a journey there. And so I really relate to that. But yeah, I've been a coach for 10 years now, which is crazy to say. But I guess I can explain a little bit of why I started coaching. Is that a good place to start? I feel like just
Yeah.
explaining.
What is that journey? How'd you get to coaching in the first place?
So I became a coach, like many other coaches that I know, because a coach helped me. And so,
Mm-hmm.
what does help mean? I think is the important part to define, because there's lots of different kinds of coaches, right? Like a coach can help you run a marathon, a coach can help you lift heavy weights, a coach can help you do a number of things, write a book, a
Mm-hmm.
coach can help you do things. So a coach helped me, but what they really did when he helped me was he helped me become what I felt like was me buried. So
Mm-hmm.
and how I got there, because I don't think anybody really gets to that place on purpose where you don't feel like yourself and you feel like you're kind of this shadow, or you're just doing the best you can. But especially when it comes to your body, I've I've noticed for myself and other women that I've coached that when you don't feel good in your body, no matter how you got there, it tends to haunt you all day. It's like a shadow that follows you around. You could be functioning and then you look and there's the shadow. You're
Mm-hmm.
doing something and then there's the shadow. And that's what it was like. And so how I got there was I grew up as kind of an active kid. I played a lot of sports and I didn't struggle with my weight growing up, but I had no idea how to eat. So I
Mm-hmm.
grew up on the 80s, 90s processed food diet of I thought Gushers and Nutty Buddy bars and buckets of cereal, that was food, and dinner, a cooked dinner for me was hamburger helper. So I was okay, this is a home cooked meal is hamburger helper. Um
Ours was tuna helper.
there you go.
Yep.
Yeah. And I remember thinking, okay, it's Friday, we order, 4 Papa John's pizzas and everybody eats as much as they can. And we're all we're drinking our 2 liters of Dr. Pepper. And that was just food. I really didn't think much about it, to be honest. That was food. And then healthy food was what I saw my mom eating. So my mom, who was always struggling with her weight, she had struggled my entire life. I never saw her thrive and still haven't seen her thrive in her body ever. But growing up, I watched her diet. So she was overweight and she would do Weight Watchers. And then she would use spray butter and she would do, Smart Ones meals and packaged food. I thought that was healthy food, quote, healthy food. And
Mm-hmm.
then what I was eating was regular food. So that was I didn't know how to cook even a scrambled egg until I was grown. I had no idea. And I say that because I didn't even know what I would. Again, I don't think we get to this place on purpose where we feel really bad. It wasn't oh, I'm eating trash. Oh, I'm eating trash. I don't care. I just thought I was eating. Um, and I know a lot of women who that's where they're at now. They're just eating. They're just eating the food that's there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you fast forward a couple of years, it was after my first 2 kids. So I was in the Navy and I had 10 knee surgeries. So they did 1 ACL reconstruction and they botched it. And that turned into 4 ACL reconstructions and 10 total knee surgeries.
Oh my God. I went through 1 and that was enough. 10?
10.
Holy
10.
crap.
My left knee doesn't bend, not even past 90.
I bet not.
And so if what happened is I gained 50 to 60 pounds with my first pregnancy. And I lost it doing Weight Watchers, where I, for 9 months straight, ate nothing but Weight Watchers ice cream sandwiches. And like, they have these like really gross, they're like cupcakes almost with like icing at the top that you can literally peel off because it's like that plastic. And that's what I ate. But if you follow the points, you lose weight. So that's how I did it. And then I got pregnant with my second son, gained 50, 60 pounds again. And this time when I tried to lose weight, it didn't work. And so I lost like 10 pounds, you know, that first little bit of weight that after having a baby, but then no more. And I did Weight Watchers and I lost 2 or 3 pounds and then it would just come back. And I remember like walking into Weight Watchers too, like it was like a walk of shame because you literally line up and then you stand there and they have you get on the scale and they read your weight out loud. And at the time they probably do it in an app now, but they like wrote it in a book, you know, and like they give you all your stuff and it's usually in a strip mall. So it's not like, you know, and so this whole thing, like I'm walking in here because I can't do this kind of thing. It felt very like shameful, but it didn't work. So I don't know why. And at the time I started to think things like, well, maybe I just got like a bad genetic deal. Yeah. Maybe my mom is overweight and I just got the like overweight gene. And so I'm going to be overweight. And then maybe this isn't my fault because the Navy actually screwed up my knee. And so I can't play sports anymore. And so I can't work out. And so it was like this whole thing, or maybe I just don't have enough discipline, or maybe like my friends are just lucky. Like I watched them eat and I would watch me eat and I'd be like, it's not really that different, but why am I, you know, almost 200 pounds and you're, you know, a healthy body weight? Like what the hell is wrong with me? And I couldn't figure it out. And I would just try these diets. And each time I would try something, it just felt like I was failing. And so that's what I mean when I said at the beginning is it's almost like I found myself in this sort of weird shell where I was like, oh, this is what mom life is. This is what happens when you get older. And I think at the time I was in my 20s, you know, but I was like, this might be what happens. You gain weight. You no longer feel like attractive or confident or anything. You just look nice. Like I think I could look nice, you know, and I just didn't feel like me anymore. And the person who I wanted to be, this athlete, this person who I felt like I had it together in other parts of my life. Like I felt like I was a really good professional and a good mom, and I was a good friend. And at the time, you know, like my ex, but like I felt like I was a good wife. I was like all those things. But this one thing was, I don't know, I felt like there was something wrong with me. And so when I say that a coach helped me, he literally gave back the piece of me that was missing. And what happened was I had joined a gym. So my ex was in the Navy. I was in the Navy too. We met in the Navy, but then I got out and he was still in. So he went on deployment and my boys were little, like almost 2 and almost 4. And I moved home to my hometown where I grew up in, and moved back into my high school bedroom with my like 2 babies and my 2 dogs. And was living, and so it was like not an ideal situation.
No, you're basically a single mother at that point right there.
Yes. And so he was gone on deployment for a year, and I was like, okay, I'm going to lose this weight, right? Like this is the time. And I'd said that a bunch of times before because now my baby weight was my body weight. This wasn't like 3 months postpartum. This was 2 years later. I was still 40 pounds overweight. And so at some point that happens to people too. I think like you have surgery and you gain a little bit of weight and you're like, oh, it's just from that. Or like, oh, I had a baby and like I just but eventually it just becomes your body. That's what happens. And so I walked into the gym like I was going to go do cardio class, you know, because I thought that's how you lose weight. So I was like, let me go do step aerobics or something. And I didn't know how to use any of the equipment. I was like super nervous about everything, but I went to this class, went straight to the bathroom, got on the scale, and I'm like, did it work? You know? And, you know, I bumped into this trainer there. He's just a regular trainer. This was I think it was a World Gym in Salisbury, Maryland, which is where I'm from. And he was like, hey, I have this class in the park. Like, do you want to come? And I was like, I don't think so. I don't think I can come. My knee, my kids, like I had 17 reasons why I couldn't come. It was cold. And then he must have asked me again, and I must have agreed for some reason. And you know what? To be full transparent, because I know that's like what we're talking about on this call in just in general. I know why I went. It was for the 100% wrong reasons. I went because at the time, my newest diet thing that I was trying was one of those shake challenges.
Mm.
It was an MLM shake challenge, and this isn't a commentary on MLMs. There's some good ones, there's some not so good, but I had bought into this thing to do these shakes, right? And I thought that, well, if I go to his class and I'm going to lose weight anyways because I'm doing the shake, well, then maybe he'll want to sell the shakes and then that will be good for everybody. And that is 100% why I went to that class, not because he convinced me or anything. And so then I went to this class and I remember it was terrible. It was so hard. Like he didn't, it was bear crawls where you're like people are behind you, so you're like in a line, so people like see straight into your butt, like it's the worst thing ever, hard things. And I couldn't do any of it. I couldn't do a push-up, nothing. And I just remember wanting to get out of there. It was not good. And I had this knee brace on and all of this stuff in my head, and I wore all black because I didn't want anybody to see my body. And he walked by, and I remember I was doing like some burpees or something, and he walked by and looked at me and he was like, I see an athlete in there. And it was like in one moment, he gave me a glimpse of like what was possible. And he, as a coach, could see something in me that I didn't know how to get to anymore. And so then I felt hope for the first time, and I just went back. And so for a year, I worked with this coach, and he taught me how to lift, weights. He didn't baby me because of my knee. He gave me a plan and a community, and he taught me about nutrition. Nobody had ever taught me about nutrition before. Just basics, stuff that no one had ever told me. And so in that year, and he also did not. So about 2/3 of the way through that year, I remember asking him, like, do you think I could ever be a coach? You almost like test the waters with somebody usually. And he totally encouraged me. He was 100% like, yes, you should do this. And so, yeah, that year, like I lost 40 to 50 pounds and like looked totally different. But really the big transformation was like inside. Like I felt like the version of me again that I was proud of and that I wanted to like build on. And he like provided that path. So I quit my professional job and then I was like, this is what I'm doing. And so I've been coaching ever since.
Hell yes. I'm so glad that you shared that story. That's so cool. It's so funny how many similarities me and you have had in our journeys. But there's like, okay, for example, like Weight Watchers, I saw my mom doing Jenny Craig. Like and she did Weight Watchers for a little bit, and those little cupcake things. I know exactly what you're talking about. Just like all these different things, there's so many commonalities. And I think that there's a lot of other women that experience the exact same thing that we did. It's one of the reasons why they feel like a shell. I think I've never heard that way of saying that, but that's spot on. It's like you feel like you're a shell. Like obviously you're still there. You're still trying to be the best person that you can be. With me, not so much, because I did have problems with my anxiety and depression and alcohol. I just wasn't I was a horrible human being to the people that love me. Right. But it is kind of like you feel like a shell. Like you don't even recognize who you are in the mirror. Right. But like the big difference between my story and your story is I didn't have any kids. Right. Which I know that we were talking about this before, and I wanted to touch base on the balance between being healthy and being a mom, because I see it from an outside perspective of coaching through people. I've done it for years, but there's only so much that I can do when I've never actually experienced it myself. So I was wondering, like, one of the biggest things I hear from clients is they struggle with the guilt, right? Being a mom, from my understanding of here an outside perspective, it's a lot of times we're conditioned to think that the best way we can be a mom is sacrificing ourselves, kind of like that martyr mindset, right? Did you ever struggle with that as well, going through your whole journey of like learning how to take care of yourself, getting with a coach, as well as being a mother?
Yeah, I think that always exists in some ways, but the reality of it is it happens by necessity at first. So if like we get real practical around what it is to become a mother, whether that's you are physically like carrying the baby or even if you adopt, right? one of the things that happens is it has to not be about you for a little while. It's by necessity. I mean, like when I was pregnant, I remember thinking, well, like my body is not mine right now. My body is growing this baby. And it's not that you completely disconnect, but it's very much probably by design so that like we can create humans. You start to go into like baby preservation mode. You're not thinking otherwise. And then when the baby is born, or if you adopt, I'm sure it's very similar, everything is about this thing and keeping it alive and feeding it and loving it and all of that. And so by necessity, you go to that place. And then again, if you physically carried the baby, your body has to recover too. So you're basically like full send, taking care of this little thing. And then your body is also recovering. It's very different. It's changed. So you have this period of time where I think like it depends on the woman. It's not the same, where your brain is supposed to do that. And then at some point you're supposed to transition out of that and start taking care of yourself. What does that look like? Well, it really does for many women depend on your support structure. So do you have a spouse who is helpful? Do you have support family? Do you have a job that gives you some flexibility? Like the circumstances of women's lives sometimes dictate when that transition can even happen. And so it is not one of those things. That's why like when I was pregnant, I unfollowed all of like the fit pregnancy and like the this and that, because it was so unhelpful. It was like, just because you return to your body 6 weeks after pregnancy doesn't mean that that's my path. And funny enough, I got to experience pregnancy again later. So after coaching for 6 years, I got surprised pregnant with my daughter, with my ex. So my boys are 14 and 12. My daughter is 4. And so I experienced my pregnancy with her sort of like in a different place. But there were some things that were the same. I gained 40 pounds with my daughter pregnancy, and I worked out every day and I ate really well. My body just gained weight. And so after I had her, I still had to rebuild to get back. And the reason I say that is because the timeline is so dependent on the person, but you have to transition from completely it being about them to somehow you fitting into that picture. And so a lot of women struggle to do that, and they think that they never can. And so it's that combination of, well, I literally cannot because I have to do this full-time thing, to becoming like, well, I should go for a walk. I probably need to get walking. I need to like exercise. I need to take time to cook some real food. I need to like do these things and also take care of this human. And so it's very seasonal. That's why it's like not a one size fits all answer, because what may feel like guilt, what if your baby has to go to daycare? Okay, so you're like a new mom. I remember sobbing when I had to take my son at 8 weeks old to daycare. But I was in the Navy. I was active duty. I didn't have a choice. At 8 weeks old, he went to daycare. I was sobbing. When we talk about, oh, like, don't feel guilty, get the fuck out of here. Of course you are going to feel guilty about taking your kid to daycare and then coming home and being like, here you go, other person, like, let me go for a walk for myself. Like, that's easier said than done. Like, of course you feel guilty. You miss your baby that you've been apart from. So it's this never ending balance of saying like, can I really do the things that I need to do in my life and not take care of myself? The answer is no. So then how do I fit it in? And I think then we have to just get scrappy. Moms have to get scrappy. There is no one size fits all. And so it might be that you really do need evenings for your kids. It might be like that is a true reality for you. Maybe your kids are in elementary school and like you've got to be there for them. They're not doing their work if you don't do it with them. They're not eating real food unless you cook it. Like they need you. So then it might be a compromise you make with your job. It might be like, hey, I won't be sitting here at my desk doing other people's work during lunch hour. I'm going to the gym. And people might give you friction on that, but you've chosen that friction because you want that other time. Or maybe you are like, hey, I need a babysitter so I can go to the gym. Like I'm willing to invest in a babysitter so that I can go to the gym. And so it really just depends on the person, but it's a non-negotiable. Like at some point, and as early as possible, you have to transition into taking care of yourself. And then continuously reprioritize based off of the circumstances you're in. Because again, like full-time daycare versus like elementary school versus like high school sports, like all of those are different scenarios. to try to
Oh,
be healthy. So I don't know if that answers your question.
no, you touch base on so many different things. I like to point out 100%. There's so many unrealistic expectations of pregnancy on social media of what it should or should not look like. I know this is a little more personal information. I don't think I've ever shared this publicly, but one of the things that Christy and I bonded over is recently getting a divorce. And
Mhm.
one of the reasons why I got a divorce is because we honestly wanted two separate things. He wanted family, he wanted kids, and I'm not necessarily against having kids. I think what happened was I was subconsciously knew that didn't want to have kids with him, or I just wasn't ready. I'm still trying to figure that out, but one of his non-negotiables is if we were going to stay together, we would have to have a family soon. And so I was like, crap. Like I was doing all
Mhm.
this research. I was just looking, and it's just like it seemed like so much unrealistic expectations, like pressure of you should be getting back. And then I was like, I'm also a fitness professional. Do I need to get back super fast? And I know me, like, and I know how, like, just seeing all of the females in my family, I will gain 40 to 50 pounds. It
Mhm.
is what it is with how my body works. And I'm not necessarily going to hate on it because it's doing what it needs to be doing, but it's just unrealistic expectations of what the process is supposed to go. I loved how you pointed out it's so individualized.
Mhm.
One of the things I always talk about with the clients is like, and we do this with anything, comparison is the thief of joy,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to pregnancy. They're like, I see Jenny only gained 20 pounds, or like Kimmy like lost her baby weight already. And it's like, it's neither good or bad. It just is. It's just your journey. Your body's doing what it needs to do. And trying to compare yourself to others is going to be the thief of joy. Just focus on you.
Yeah.
So love hearing that from you. But one of the things I wanted to ask you a little bit more about is in this process of like learning to be a mother while also going to like learning to prioritize yourself. This is going to be a little bit of context to bring you to why I'm asking this.
Mhm.
Is like you're talking about you have to prioritize yourself, but that's super hard to like accept. I think in my own journey, it was like I don't necessarily deserve it at some points, and some of it was like, why even try? Like no
Mhm.
matter what I do, it either sucks or it makes me worse than when I started. So why do I even try? So it's kind of like that belief that I'm capable of making that change. Slowly and slowly, that prioritization went down to the point where I'm like, why would I prioritize myself? And
Mhm.
one of the things that like really was, I don't think I've ever told you this, but one of the things that you came in and you helped me significantly was you came in and taught us how to do time blocking.
Oh yeah.
And one of the first things that you said is, okay, the first thing that you put on your time blocking is like the most important thing. What's going to be like, what's the number one thing? And you pointed out most of you are going to say your work, most of you are going to say your family, but the most important thing that you need to start with is you.
Mhm.
Because if you don't prioritize you, all these things that are super important aren't going to get whole you. Like we hear this so many times. And I was like, holy crap, I've been doing this wrong this whole time. It makes sense why I'm inconsistent in taking care of myself, guys. Like, even though we're fitness professionals, I'm sure that
Mhm.
Chrissy can say the same
Yeah.
thing. It's like we struggle with this. We struggle with this all the time because we have big goals just like everybody else. We have priorities. You have a family on top of it. There's going to be ebbs and flows. And that was like the big thing
Mhm.
that completely changed my perspective. And now I'm teaching my clients this and they're like, oh, I've never thought of it like that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, like it's just such a big thing. But I'm sure that you coach your clients through this a lot, right? If you had a client in front of you that was like struggling with this transition of like, no, like I need to prioritize myself in order to actually reach other goals, whatever those goals are in life. Like, what are usually the things that you say to them? Because it was super helpful when you were talking through it with us.
I think it's like if you treat your day like a budget and you're gonna spend it all, right? Like in a real budget is supposed to be treated like that. So like I'm not a financial guru by any means, but the people who know finances don't say like, oh, you have this amount and the rest is just lost, you know? It's you have this amount and then oh, this extra stuff that you've already when you've covered the big things, this one's going to savings, this can be free money, this can be right. So like at the end of the day there's no dollars left in the budget. That's how our day is. We literally spend it on everything.
Mhm.
And so when especially women who are pulled in multiple different directions feel like they have a hard time prioritizing themselves, I like to empty the calendar. You have nothing on there. And then we start at the beginning and we just say, like, what is it that we need to prioritize first? What are the mandatory things? And just like you said, like, yes, our self belongs the top, but most of the time when I'm coaching clients, I allow them to pick like the 2 or 3, right? Like they'll be like, well, I'm supposed to be taking care of myself. So they know they're supposed to answer that. And then they're like, and I have to do my kids' stuff. And then this is a non-negotiable, whatever it is. And so then I'm like, okay, well, let's put those in order. So we'll literally block the calendar. It's like, okay, well, I have to drop off my kids and pick them up. So we put those, how long does that take? Let's be specific, 45 minutes. Okay, we got 45 minutes here, 45 minutes here. And then it's like, okay, when do you go to work? You have to go to work, right? You just told me it's mandatory for you to pay your bills, right? So then we put work in. And so then now we've got the rest. Budget. Okay, where are we going to put you in here? Like, so then it now becomes really practical problem solving, because otherwise it's before it's like, hey, I need you to go to the gym 3 times a week this week and lift weights. And I need you to walk every day. And I also need you to follow this meal, plan, or like do these priorities. That is not helpful for people because if they skip this part, then they can't do it.
Yeah.
And so then when it becomes, it's like, okay, well, if you have to go to the gym 3 times a week, where is it going to go? And if it doesn't fit on the calendar, it's not happening. It will not happen. I got to speak at like a real estate thing a couple weeks ago. It was really fun. And it was a room full of like women who are in real estate, who are in loans, who are in all that kind of stuff. And I asked, how many people struggle with like going to the gym? Like, you're just like, I meant to, and it didn't happen, right? Like most of the room raised their hand. And I'm like, how many of y'all struggle with showing up to a open house? None of them. Literally nobody. Because there's no universe that wouldn't be on their calendar where they would be like meeting a client to walk them through an open house. They would plan, okay, like here's my half an hour that I need to drive there. Here's like, what I'm going to wear. Here's like, I'm going to meet the client and the follow-up thing that I have to do. And they build that into your calendar. And I'm like, you already have this skill set. You're just not applying it to yourself. You're applying it to that person. So it's not that you don't know how to work out or you have sucky discipline or motivation. It's just you are literally not using the skill set that creates success in this place for the thing that you want. You say you want to go to the gym. Well, let's use that skill set. So number one, let's put it in your calendar. And it can't be at like some made up time. Like it has to be, oh, it's going to take me 15 minutes to drive there. And oh, it's going to take me, this amount of time to shower and get dressed. And so here comes my crazy dog.
Meatball's outside with Calvin right now. That's the only reason why we don't have little barks right now.
But that is, time blocking is very practical. And it's also like when we talk about, okay, if these are the priorities, we've just put these in, the 3 priorities maybe, right? Like they're real priorities. We're not moving it unless we absolutely have to. And that's how we have to treat it too. It's like, okay, well, I've blocked in my walks and I'm walking 3 times a week during my lunch break at work. This is my time. So then when someone's like, oh, hey, can you like last minute cover the thing? No, you can't actually, because you already decided that you prioritize this time. And again, if you had a friggin' any other appointment, if you had a dentist appointment, a Botox appointment, a vet appointment, you would look at your calendar and be like, nope, I can't at that time because I've got something. That's how you have to treat your healthy lifestyle activities, because then you're going to start to guard them. And then the other thing is that life happens. So it's not that we've never missed an appointment before, right? Like there have been times where you've had to miss an appointment. You reschedule. You treat it like it's a thing. Or like, what if you were the real estate, person and you were supposed to meet a client and then you realize, oh shit, I don't have my shoes. Like you'd go find some friggin' shoes, right? You like, go to the dollar store and get yourself some shoes so that you can go meet the client. Why? Because of priority. But when it comes to working out, we're like, I can't, didn't bring the right socks today. Like not going to the gym. Like we have to get scrappy around keeping the commitments to ourselves. And that could mean rescheduling if life really does happen, or it just could mean like making it work. And I think that that's true. Like, and most fitness people know sometimes you just got to make it work. It's not the way it was planned.
Oh yeah. I will say one of my biggest pet peeves at gyms, because I know that you do CrossFit too.
Mhm.
I used to work at gyms where they would punish people for being late.
Mhm.
And I would coach the classes that a lot of moms came to, like the 7 a.m., 9 a.m. ones, because usually
Right.
the kids were dropped off or it's right before that. And they would come in late with their kids. And like, I remember owners coming up to me being like, they came in late, they need to do burpees. And I'm like, you cannot make me do that. Like, you cannot make me punish people for being scrappy and showing up and doing the best that they can. You don't have
Mhm.
kids, so you can't relate. Like, I'm not going to punish them for showing up. That's the wrong message that we're putting out. I got into trouble a couple times, but I wouldn't budge on it just because it doesn't make sense. Like, people make the time for what they want, and sometimes it doesn't come out perfect, but at least they're showing up and they're prioritizing it, especially as moms. Like, I say this all the time when I'm coaching a mom, is like, you're like an unsung hero. Like, you are
Mhm.
literally sacrificing yourself, your body, your mind for this little child and a family. And like, that deserves to be celebrated. And it's not impossible for you to see results, but you just gotta get a little bit creative, and you have to alter your expectations, but it can totally happen.
Yeah,
um
the whole season of in the whole idea with this time blocking too is that you're gonna have to redo it like
mhm.
seasonally
Oh
because
yeah.
things change. So you have to redo this. But this past like 6 months has been super tough.
Mhm.
Like we talked about, like going through a divorce this year. Like
Mhm.
their dad is not around very much because he's still in the Navy. So it's a lot of juggling, like just very practical kid juggling. And because I've got 3 kids and the 2 older boys are in tackle football, and then my daughter's 4. And so it's like this past 6 months was super hard. And a lot of times I would be like driving in millions of circles, dropping kids off, picking them up, dropping them off, and hoping that I could get to jujitsu. And jujitsu starts at 6 and goes to 7:30. And most nights of like the fall, I didn't make it there till 6:30. And so I would walk in late, and I always felt apologetic, right? Apologize that I'm late, but it was the best that I could do. It was literally the best I could do, was
Mhm.
juggling those kids by myself and getting there at all for any version of class. And so I was like, well, some is better than none today.
Mhm.
And I would just tell myself that. Like, it wasn't like you flip some switch and then all of a sudden this magically happens forever and ever. These things are become practices, like this time blocking, this prioritization, this like recalibration of your life and things that are happening. You have to do this continuously, and like the self assurance of
No.
some is better than none. It's okay. I'm going to take it for today.
100%. And I talk about the evolution of those things too. And I find that a lot of clients um kind of are like, oh, like, this isn't just a one and done, I have to keep doing it.
Hmm.
And I'm like, be a glass half full or empty. It's like, you're gonna have to adapt and change, right? Because you have seasons in your life. What you're willing to prioritize and do when you're younger is no longer what you're going to be able to do as a mom, or as you get older, when they grow up and they get a car, or when they move. Like, you're going to have different things that you can do, different things that you want to prioritize. And you're also going to have different boundaries. Hopefully, I think that's a big thing that a lot of people struggle with, are personal boundaries with their own health. Like you're talking about before,
Hmm.
it's like, no, I will not do the chore work that I'm not
Hmm.
paid for. I'm going to prioritize myself. A lot of people really struggle with that.
Hmm.
But in terms of boundaries, we want those, and those will change. And so sometimes I'm always like, this is a good thing. This means that you evolve and you grow. Human beings need to evolve and grow. You're not supposed to stay the same. That's
Hmm.
when essentially shit hits the fan. So just like on my birthdays, my favorite thing is looking back at the year and being like, look how much I screwed up and how much
Hmm.
smarter I am now. It's the same thing with your calendars. It's like, look how much I've grown. Look, my priorities have shifted. Look, and you're just
Hmm.
honoring that. You're honoring the evolution of you and how you're growing throughout your life. That's going to
Hmm.
have to happen. But you brought up the topic, and I wanted to talk about this because I think that again, we talked about this earlier, where we both connected on going through a divorce, and there's no way to like bring it up like,
No.
what's a good segue for that. But I just want to bring up that topic of just like kind of going in through your perspective of how going through a divorce essentially, I don't know the ins and outs of the details, but just kind of sharing that story as well.
Yeah, I think, and I haven't talked about it too much, Mostly because I was still very much in it, you know? And like when you're in stuff, you can share it a little bit, but it wasn't helpful for
Mhm.
me or for anyone else to share the details. And at the end of the day, there's nothing for my ex is like a great person and a good
Mhm.
man, and I love him. We grew apart after spending nearly 15 years apart in the Navy. I
Mhm.
mean, we spent more time apart than together in our
Mhm.
marriage. And I think I found myself at this point where I was like willing to be unhappy in my relationship because it was safe and complacent and
Mhm.
because he's a good man and a good person. But it had been years since I had felt like connected or happy or and I say happy loosely because I was happy like with our family dynamic. But in terms of like fulfillment in a relationship, I had closed those doors years ago, almost out of necessity, which is why I think a lot of military families and people who, you know, depending on your work setting in your relationship struggle because when you cope and you're not like actively working on your relationship, you start to shut down, and so I fully take ownership over my part of shutting
Mhm.
down. So ultimately, I just found myself about a year ago in a place where I realized I had compromised on that. And I had decided, well, like, I don't need to be, um, you know, fulfilled and happy in that part of my life. Like, it can just be this. That's good enough. And and then I just decided that that wasn't good enough. And so disassembling my life was not fun.
Mhm.
I know you know. It's like there's judgment, there's people who have opinions, there's bullshit, there's hurt
Mhm.
for both people. And I think I walked like 1,000 miles this year, like as a mental health, you know, coping strategy. But yeah, that's the long and short of it. I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like I've been on my own for a long time anyway, so not a lot has changed around my like normal life situation. I feel like I've been a single mom by necessity, not his fault, for a decade.
Yeah.
Um, but now it's for real.
Yeah. I want to say thank you. Like this shit's not easy to talk about. Um, Emotions are hard, and doing it on a podcast is even harder. So I really appreciate you doing it. And very similar situation with myself. Again, not a mother, so I didn't have to. I didn't get the experience that side of things on how it affect the children, which I can't even imagine that struggle alone. But it was, yeah, like we got married young. We are in a whole different area in our lives, and we just grew apart. We were both working really hard. I found love through coaching, and he wanted other things in life. He wanted kids, he wanted a family, and I communicated like halfway through our marriage that I wasn't even sure if I wanted to have kids.
Mm-hmm.
And um yeah, we were just not happy together, and we were both coping with our emotions through other means. Like I dove into work, I dove into sports because I think subconsciously that was like my coping mechanism before, was alcohol and food, and then it just translated into work and sports, just trying
I
to be
think me
away. And
too.
I know that
Yeah.
yeah, it's and he told me like he told me this when we decided we had that conversation separation, like we cried for a while, but we both like were like, yeah, this needs to happen. We had this honest conversation of like both of our ownerships and of the situation. And one of the things he said is like, Casey, when you dove into sports, like I prayed for when you left, because
Mm-hmm.
every single time you're around you just picked fights. And like he refused to communicate with me, and it just came to the point. I remember um, like the day that I knew that I needed to take action on it, or I knew that it was going to be coming up, because we didn't actually separate for quite a while after that. But I knew, I was like gut feeling like we were probably not going to make it. Was um, long story short, he was struggling with drinking. He was coping with his emotions through drinking, and he had a bad night, and we had to take him to his parents just because he was struggling. I was like, I can't do anything. I have to take him to his parents. That's the people that can help him right now. So I drove through the night, took him to his parents, and got him settled. Woke up the next day, and I came out of the room, and he was laughing, and he was with his family, and they were hugging, and they were joking. And I walked into the room, and everybody got quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And like that was the day that I knew I was like, I do not make him better. Like this, I'm supposed to be the person that does that for him, and I was not making him better. And I think it was, damn it,
Yeah.
emotions are hard. Again, I don't think there was like, we weren't bad people. He is probably one of the nicest people I've ever met. I have all the love for him. I hope him nothing but happiness. And if he ever calls for and he needs help, I will be there right away. But it was just two different things in life, two people. And we were just, when you do that, you bring out the worst in each other when you're trying to force something that doesn't work. And so later I left him, and it was more of, it wasn't necessarily me leaving him. It was just me brought up the topic of, we need to talk. And then we both agreed that this wasn't working out. It was probably, it's weird to say picture perfect divorce because we were just completely amicable, but it was still hard. I think, I don't know if this is what you experienced, but I think the hardest part was, it was like a death of identity. Like I was mourning something, like I knew it was the right decision, but I became depressed. Like I remember not eating for months. Like beginning of last year, I got super lean, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, you look great," and like inside, I'm like, "Yeah," because I'm depressed. I'm not eating. It's one of the reasons why guys don't comment on people's appearances unless you know they're doing it the right way. You might be reinforcing bad things. But it was tough. It was tough because I felt like I was losing a part of myself, and then the unknown was scary. Like, I'm gonna have to date. I suck at dating. I'm not good at that stuff. Like
I'm not good at dating. I don't know how that's gonna be.
I got super fucking lucky.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I found Calvin is because I tried to hire him.
Oh, really?
He said no and asked me on a date instead, and I was like, okay, fine. And then he like wore me down over a period of time. I got super lucky. I wasn't looking at that point, but yeah, it was crazy. But did you go through that too, where it was like an identity death? I don't know if I'm communicating that well.
Yeah, I really, in the beginning it was like, oh, this is clarity, this is the path of change, right? And I tried a little bit of therapy, and I'd never had therapy before. Actually, I'd never like worked with a therapist, and it was kind of helpful, but not really, to be honest. I feel like I was sort of still in like this active mindset of, this is what's happening, and sort of like very practical. And it took a while for it to like set in, for real things to feel hard. And that happened. It was like a delay. It was like a 9-month delay after we separated. And there was a season of like, I would just say pain, where things felt so painful inside for a number of reasons. And I'd never experienced this before, and I'm grateful that I hadn't until this season. But it was very much like that shadow thing, but worse. It was like inside was this like perpetual feeling of like sadness, and outside was just functioning. It was like every interaction I was with someone, it was like I needed it to be over so that I could go back into my head. But my head wasn't a good place, but I still wanted to be there. So it was a very strange like experience overall. And so it wasn't until this past, season of like, it was probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, maybe. I went to a seminar at the jujitsu gym. So I started jujitsu a couple years ago. And I went to this seminar, and I wasn't even gonna go. It was like on breath work and meditation and healing. And I was like, I've done some breath work stuff with like CrossFit and, that kind of stuff, but this was in a different category, and I knew it was. And so hold on one second. Logan, go. My son just walked in the room. Go, buddy. I'm on a podcast. Go right now. I can't read that later. Yeah. After I'm done this, I apologize.
No, you're fine.
So they're all home because it's Christmas break. So everybody who's listening, thank you for understanding. My children are upstairs and they've been like so quiet, and then they just came down and he's writing a post-it and trying to get me to read it while I'm telling you this like really hard important part of the story. And the post-it says something about, can I go to the mall?
You need to know this now.
And I'm like, go away. One, I don't want to talk in front of them. Like, it's fine. I've shared a lot of this with them, but still, like, and then I'm like, I'm not reading your stupid post-it right now. And so I went to this seminar almost like desperate, thinking like, well, if I learn some breath work, great. You know, when I go into like my shitty headspace, then maybe I'll have some breathing to do. Yeah. And it was so powerful, but not in like a healing way. It was almost like I had a festering wound, and the seminar just like lifted up the bandage and revealed all of the like fester. It was like all of a sudden it was like somebody else could see it. And so since then, I've actually been working with the guy who led the seminar one-on-one, and he uses a lot of like there's some that are like more typically accepted like therapy techniques like EMDR and those kind of things, but most of them are more like ancient practices and meditation and like healing and releasing of trauma and, you know, working through some of your shit. And so I have been working with him since then, one-on-one. And it's been transformational for me, like in so many ways. And all of the things that I thought were my like current problems, you know, going through divorce, like financial stuff, business stuff, just interpersonal, like relationship stuff with people. Those were all like the problems on the top of my mind. Like the stuff that we've worked on has not been those things. Mm-hmm. It's been sort of, you know, the things in my life that led to this, and releasing a lot of that to like really connect with myself in a way that I've never done. I feel like I spent an entire decade working on how to take care of my body, right? Like what we've been talking about at the beginning of this podcast. Like, I feel like I'm an expert at that. And regarding mindset around taking care of your body. So like mindset stuff, I feel like I have spent a lot of time and done a lot of reps with myself and others. So that part I felt like I had done a, you know, work with, but in terms of like taking care of myself, like my actual self, I've done nothing until now. And so it's like, this has been the real change this season, has been, you know, doing some of that hard work and learning how to take better care of myself and learning how to listen to myself and trust my intuition and heal. And again, part of that's taking ownership for over a lot of the things that led me to the hard, you know, but yeah, it's been pretty epic. And so it's not like, oh, this is a season of being more spiritual, or, oh, this is a season of this. It's almost like what was before and then after. It feels more like that. And connecting that now into like how I take care of my body and how my clients do, and like also how they prioritize, but also like taking into account this, like this self, this, you know, you, the deep down you, your soul, your who you are, has just been like transformational. So I'm actually going away on a retreat. And it's funny because I wasn't going to go, but it's in January. So it's January 4th through the 12th, and it is in Costa Rica. And Costa Rica, one, it like there was so many reasons again not to go. I didn't have the money for it. It's go time. So like, for everybody who's listening, like January, February, obviously is the time when coaches are the most needed. Like that's the go time. It's like, so going out of the country for, you know, like a week, and January 5th is not like typically a time I would have picked. And then I didn't think I was ready. And so there's like a plant medicine component to this trip too. So there'll be like sweat lodge and ayahuasca and all of the deep work. And I was like, I'm not ready for all that. And then I just decided, I was like, I'm going. Like, I will figure it out, just like I figure out other things. I'll figure out the kids. I'll figure out the money. I will figure out coaching stuff. Like, it can all be figured out. I'm going to do this for me. So I'm going.
I heard that I've heard many different people going on retreats like this. Don't you have to be on a specific diet too leading into it as well, or not for you?
They suggested certain things,
Yeah.
and so I am new to using any kind of psychedelics for
Mm-hmm.
healing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, I mean, it's not like this is something that I've like always done or been exposed to. It's just something I didn't know about. Um, and there's tons of research out there showing how like different psychedelics can help people deal with trauma and PTSD and all sorts of things. And I didn't even know it existed. And so, I had my first like mushrooms experience recently. Like, and again, it was very intentional. I mean, like mushrooms can be like super fun, right? Like, but I never did that growing up because I was in the Navy. So I like kind of missed that window of like
Yeah.
doing whatever. But, in terms of experiencing it like this for healing and for intention, that was the first time. And it was super powerful. And so doing ayahuasca, I don't know what it's going to be like. And they do recommend certain things leading up to it.
Yeah.
So they made a recommendation around like some nutrition choices. Like they it like goes like 2 weeks out, 1 week out,
Mhm.
So like 2 weeks out, they recommend like eliminating most sugar and like processed foods and stuff. And then they do recommend like going lighter on the meats, but it's
Mhm.
like not mandatory. And then they recommend like coming down from like if you're someone who does like super high stimulating like video games and stuff and like or like really intense movies like of violence or sadness and stuff like that. Like they tell you like take a break from that for the couple weeks leading up to it and after. And then obviously if you're on certain medication, they one, they screen you because some people just can't safely
Mhm.
do it because of their medication.
Mhm.
But then if you are on certain ones that are optional, then you back off those. But yeah.
You're gonna have to tell me how it goes. I'm so interested right now. You're gonna have to, when you come back, tell me how it goes. But like, it just sounds like what you went through before of like being a mom and being scrappy. You will figure it out. Like
Mhm.
it's the same thing here. Is you're in the same situation. It's just you're getting scrappy in a different way. It's like I will figure it out. Enough with excuses. I just need to show up and prioritize myself. But you're just learning in a different way. Do
Mhm.
you feel like that's really? I know that you briefly mentioned it, but do you feel like this whole recent transition of learning more about breath work and sorting through trauma and things like that, has that affected your way of coaching as of lately?
It has. And again, I was slow to share it
Mm-hmm.
because again, like as I was going through it, and I've always been very transparent about things like body stuff. I've always been transparent about, they're going back upstairs. And so that's why Georgia's sad if you can hear her. Um, but I've always been transparent about those things. But this, it was like it was too heavy, too hard to share right away.
Mm-hmm.
And now that it's been a couple of months, I can start to talk about it and share it, but I still feel like I'm like very much in this like healing journey and again, like becoming a better version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, it started impacting my coaching philosophy and like the way that I think about people as soon as I started doing it. But it also just going through this experience in general has been very revealing around pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you shared that you've struggled in different seasons of your life with depression and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't before. And so I don't know that we always need to experience things to be able to relate, but now it's like a different level.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me to understand what depression or anxiety is, I didn't understand that. Or like feeling of like pain that just sort of like haunts you or like darkness or I didn't understand that. And I probably still don't at the level that some people experience it, because obviously there's levels.
Mm-hmm.
But that's changed me as a coach,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. So I think it's going to continue to evolve how I coach, how my team coaches, the products that we offer, how we take care of our body cannot be disconnected from how we take care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think in terms of like sharing, that's something that I always try to be authentic and I always try to share, but there's a fine line between being authentic and sharing and broadcasting.
Right.
And like there were so many people when I was going through my divorce, they're like, you should share what you're struggling with. You should share this. This is going to help people. There's other people just like you. And I'm like, I get it, but like one, there are some things that we don't need to share. We're allowed to have privacy. And two, like sometimes we need to sort through our emotions because when we're in the height of it, our emotions aren't always reality. And sometimes we can say something or feel something and have a different opinion once you sort through things or have more time to think about it. And again, big pet peeve of the fitness industry, broadcasting, treating social media like their diary instead of what it, in my opinion, should be, is more of a tool to help people.
Right.
So there's a fine line with that.
And that's
but
just it. Like, what's the point of sharing? And
Yeah.
so for me, I enjoy being on social media to like see other people's stuff. But my real point of being on there, the reason I spend any time doing any of it is to help people, to put out good stuff, either share with them my life so they can see what I'm doing and they can learn from it, or to literally offer them help and solutions. And so the point of it isn't my diary.
Yeah.
And it could be for some people. Like if that is how it is, then that's fine. But it's a fine line because I don't think we have to share anything like that. And then if we want to, then you can. And when you want to is also up to you.
Yeah.
And I just remember like when I was pregnant with my daughter, right? That's very private for some people. For me, I was just like, here's where I'm at. It was very easy for me to share that. As I was going through it, it was easy. And then when I had her, although my body was like, to me, I didn't recognize it because I had been fit and super like athlete identity kind of thing. And then all of a sudden here I was like back in this like overweight body from having a baby. I didn't recognize it. I couldn't lift heavy weights. I was struggling with that. That was still easy for me to share. Like, although I was struggling with it, it wasn't the kind of struggle that rocked me. Like I was able to be like, I look terrible in this picture. I'm having a hard day. Like that was easy to share in the moment. Where for some people that might not be. It might be too deep to like talk about their body image struggles, right? Like that might not be something they can share in the moment. For me, it was okay. Whereas this was not. I needed distance and I still do. Like there's still things I'm not ready to talk about yet. And I think there's a balance because I know even sharing this on this podcast, and it was funny because I did Jared's podcast a couple weeks ago and it hasn't been released yet, but that was the real first time that I've even talked about struggling at all because I think like from social media, you can't tell because I wasn't ready to talk about it.
Yeah. And to be honest, this is the first time I've talked in a public forum on like my divorce and what happened. So
well, good. We shared together.
Thanks for listening, guys. Yes. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for getting authentic with us. You know what? I pulled a Casey moment. I had a really, really good question. Now I forgot it.
That's okay.
That happens sometimes, man.
Yeah.
And it was a really good question. I don't want to move on. I don't want to close without asking it, but I can't remember it. This is frustrating me. ADHD moment. There's a reason why I have the nickname Goldfish, man. I forget things all the time. It's like when we're
Dory?
having staff meetings. Yeah, Dory. There you go. I like that better. That makes it sound so much cuter than Goldfish moment.
Yeah. But, I'll definitely let you know how the retreat goes if it was about that. I'm really, people are like, are you excited? I'm like, excited's not the right word. I'm looking forward to it. And I don't know what it will be like, but I'm looking forward to the tools that I'm going to learn. And I also, from what I can understand and what people have told me is that like the work that I'm doing to use like breathing and meditation and different practices to like tap into myself, like it's plant medicine isn't necessarily different. It just speeds it up and it gives you like, more clear pictures, more understanding of yourself. Right. And so those are things that you probably could discover along the way if you're willing to do the work. And so I say that like, if you're like, I'm interested, but like that seems too far away, just know like the work itself of like healing and of, taking this time to really, whatever it looks like for you, it doesn't have to include plant medicine but I'm interested and excited to, have that.
The healing process is different for everybody. Like I know for some people they try therapy and it just doesn't work for them. But there's other people that swear by therapy. Like you were on Jared's podcast. Jared's my best friend, guys. He loves therapy. Like we have the conversation of like, when somebody works on themselves and gets therapy, that's sexy. Like he's just so into therapy. But there's some people that try it and it doesn't work for them. I think it's again, like I'm very much about you know the saying amor fati, the love of fate. It's like it's neither good or bad. It just is. It's just your journey, right? And when we label things that it should or should not be, or it's good or bad, that's when things hit the fan. Like your journey is your journey. What works is what works for you. It's neither good or bad. Don't compare yourself. It's just go with it, like figure it out. It's the same thing with healing. I think most of my healing has always been all by myself. I don't know if it's good or bad. And then I was like, okay, it's neither. It's just my journey. Am I against therapy? No, I tried it for a short period of time and it actually pointed out that I should be getting a divorce when it was supposed to make me make my ex and I actually get to closer together. It didn't work so well, but that might be a test to maybe I was talking to the wrong person. I have also done breath work and maybe I just haven't found the right person to guide me through that. I'm very big about like, I talk about this all the time. I'm not afraid to say this. I need coaches. I need people I'm a very emotional person. I will overcomplicate things and I will psych myself out or in, and I need somebody to call me out my shit. And like you're talking about before with like going through the psychedelics, it speeds up the process. The same thing with coaching. And maybe I just haven't been connected with the right person, but it's neither good or bad. It's my journey. I'm growing just like you are growing. And it's a journey. There really, in my opinion, shouldn't ever be like an end destination to sorting through things. So
No. And again, it's like, what is this? If we circle back all the way to the beginning, like that story of me becoming like feeling like myself again, right? Of like tapping into that chapter was growth in every possible way, of like dealing with my belief system around my knee and like dealing with like, you know, all of this again, identity around, well, like I'm just going to be stuck being overweight and I'll never be able to. I dealt with a lot of bullshit in my head and conquered a lot of really cool things in the physical journey that was that season, like starting with that like transformational year into what's been the past decade of like continuing to work on myself physically and mentally and then share that with others. That chapter will continue, you know. But now I feel like I'm adding in this new layer that I would, it would have been cool if I'd done it before, but I didn't. So again, like to your point, like your journey is your journey. This is now this chapter of like adding in this, like, you know, deeper work, this connection with, again, like dealing with a lot of the things holding me back, a lot of the deeper traumas, the things that I pretended like weren't a thing, you know? And then when you start to deal with those, doors start to open and things start to change and you're able to grow and take better care of yourself. Like everybody's always like, oh, you got to love yourself. And I feel like I never even understood what that meant until now, barely, you know? And so this new chapter is like layering on top of that. So whatever stage is that you're at, like you don't have to compare, like what Casey was saying before about like the pregnancy thing. Like the worst thing that you can do is compare. And if you're dealing with your own bullshit and like tackling things so that you can live life better, then you're doing it. That is at the end of the day, like what you were talking about for your birthday, right? Like look at all the things that I learned. It's like, well, if you're in motion and you're trying to, you know, break some of those chains that hold you back, or, you know, allow yourself to expand so that you're not constrained by what other people think of you or what should be or something like that. Or if you are physically better because you're taking better care of yourself, or you're mentally better, or you're spiritually better, you're doing the thing. Yeah. So like that's maybe the good takeaway.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to say again, thank you for sharing your journey on here. Thank you for being open. Thank you for being authentic. Like this stuff is so hard to talk about. Emotions. I think that's a big lesson of 2023 is learn how to deal with my emotions and feel my feelings. It's been hard, but it's been helpful. But you coming on and sharing your journey, I know it helped me a ton just from this conversation. And you always do this. Like you always open up and talk about your own experiences and you tell your story. Like this is like probably like the fourth or fifth time you shared things. And I'm just like, Like, I'm in love with you right now. It's
Oh,
mine.
well,
It's great.
this I just appreciate you asking. And again, like we've always connected. It's not like we get to talk that much, but every time it always feels like connection.
Mhm.
So you feel like my little sister or something.
Can I be? I've always wanted a sister. I only have an older brother, and he beat me up, so I still love him. But
Yeah, I have a
damn,
brother too. I have a brother and a sister, but I
can't
would
do
take
it.
another one. But yeah, no, I'm so glad that you asked, and thank you for sharing, your experience too, because I know it's hard. There's so many like things wrapped up in sharing something that is truly life-changing or hard or difficult or, you know, it's brave for you to
Yeah,
share it too.
yeah. Thank you. Well, Chrissy, before I let you go, can you tell everybody where to find you if they want to talk to you, ask you some questions?
Sure. So the best way is probably Instagram at Christy May Campbell. So shoot me a message. Like if you're interested about anything that, I talked about, I'm happy to just like listen to where you're at and point you in the right direction about any of this stuff. If you want to get connected with the person that I'm working with, like if you like, that's the part that I want to, learn more about, I will link you up with him. If there's any way that I can help, just reach out or just to
Mhm.
say, hey, you can certainly follow my Instagram stories and see my daughter and her crazy hamster and like all of the things that we do in
Oh,
my
I love it. I
in my
love it.
house. And then I have a podcast called Fit Me Coffee Talk. It's short. It's usually 10 to 15 minutes. So check that out.
Yeah, I check those out periodically.
Thanks.
It's all gold. It's all gold. I highly suggest you go listen to it.
Thank
Right.
you.
Well, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. And guys, I hope you got value from this. A lot of times just sharing your story and relating to other people can really give you the courage to make that change. I know that was a big thing for me when I first started. So if you felt like this was helpful, you feel like maybe one of your family or your friends could hear this and this could actually make them have the courage to make the change or they can relate to it in some small way, go ahead and share this for us. The big thing that we're trying to do is just share the information for you guys to go from surviving to thriving, whether it's through nutrition, fitness, or mindset, or it's real talk like this.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead and give that a share. And if you have any feedback on what we can talk about, what you want to hear about, how we can get better, feel free to leave that. I love honest criticism. I'm one of those weird people that actually loves it. So feel free to say that. But appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for showing up to another episode, listening to it from start to finish. Your time and your attention is extremely valuable. We appreciate you. Until next time.
Bye, guys.